weird, isn't it? It's like being in a tube. It's like being a tube train. I find these avenues really romantic. They come like this very special way of using trees. This is Albi. 600 years of Inquisition began here with the first crusade against the Albigenses. The cathedral at Albi was built to consummate this crusade of genocidal repression. And remains adorned to this day with dire warnings against the Albigensian vision. Portraying the naked innocents as wallowing in the pits of the underworld, exotic in its terrible truth of genocide. During the Crusades to the Holy Land, Gnostic descent spread from the eastern Mediterranean and settled in southern France around Albi. Soon the Cathar Perfecti, or pure ones, controlled much of the area. They believed in two eternal principles of good and evil, did not acknowledge the sacraments, the doctrines of hell or purgatory, bodily resurrection, or the authority of the Church. They led lives of simplicity and penance in which salvation lay only in the Lord. Notice the books on the altar among the naked innocents. In 1223, Pope Gregory IX charged the Dominican Inquisition to undertake the final extirpation of the Albigensians. Laymen were forbidden to possess a Bible or any book of religious ritual in the vernacular. The Pope, alarmed at the threat to his power, proclaimed a crusade effectively against his own people. Thousands of Cathars were killed and many more tortured into accepting the Church's quote-unquote true faith. Laws were passed to suppress the Albigensian heresy. The first Inquisition was established to ensure that they were applied. This continued for 600 years until last century, and has only in 2000 been apologised for by the Pope. After discussion, our men entered the town of Carcassonne with the cross in front. When the church had been restored, they placed the Lord's cross on top of the tower, for it was Christ who had captured the tower. When the abbot tried to convert them, they all said with one voice, "Why are you preaching to us? We don't want your faith. We deny the Church of Rome. You are wasting your time. Neither life nor death can turn us from the beliefs we hold." The female heretics were even more obstinate and difficult. Simon de Montfort first urged the heretics to convert, but having no success, he dragged them out of the castle. A huge fire was kindled, and they were all thrown into it. It was not hard for our men to throw them in, for they were so obstinate in their wickedness that they threw themselves in. Only 3 women escaped, whom a noble lady snatched from the flames and restored to the Holy Church. Both Cathars and Catholics were besieged within the walls of Béziers. On the day of the feast of Mary Magdalene, they killed their viscount in the church dedicated to her name and uttered the Albigensian heresy that she was Christ's concubine. When the city fell, the general was asked who to slaughter. "Kill them all," he said. "The Lord will know his own. All must be punished to ensure that the guilty do not escape." Our forces spared neither rank nor sex nor age. About 20,000 people lost their lives at the point of the sword. The entire city was plundered and put to the torch. Thus did divine vengeance vent its wondrous rage. We are now moving into the central area of witch burning in Europe. In southwestern Germany alone, more than 3,000 witches were executed between 1560 and 1680. No certain figures exist for the exact number of people killed in the witch hunts, but some scholars put it as high as 4 million. 85% of those killed were women. Henry Boguet said Germany in 1590 was almost entirely occupied with building fires for witches, and Switzerland has been compelled to wipe out many of her villages on their account. The chronicler of Treves reported that in the year 1586 the entire female population of 2 villages was wiped out by the inquisitors, except for only 2 women left alive. In 1524, 1,000 witches died at Como. Strasbourg burned 5,000 in a period of 20 years. Travellers in Lorraine may see thousands and thousands of the stakes to which the witches are bound. The Senate of Savoy condemned 800 witches at one time. Nicolas Remy said he personally sentenced 800 witches in 15 years, and in 1 year alone forced 16 witches to suicide. The Bishop of Bamberg claimed 600 witches in 10 years. The Bishop of Nancy 816 years. The Bishop of Würzburg 1905 years. 500 were executed within 3 months at Geneva and 400 in a single day at Toulouse. The city of Treves burnt 7,000 witches. The Lutheran prelate, Benedict Carthold, who claimed to have read the Bible 53 times, sentenced 20,000 devil worshippers. Even relatively permissive England killed 30,000 witches between 1542 and 1736. The slaughter went on throughout Christian Europe for nearly 5 centuries. It was common practice to silence witches on their way to execution, either by wooden gags or by cutting out their tongues to prevent communication with the crowd. Notoriously harsh in its procedures, the Inquisition was defended during the Middle Ages by appeal to biblical practices and to the Church Father St. Augustine, who had interpreted Luke 14:23. And the Lord said unto the servant, Go out into the highways and hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled, as endorsing the use of force against heretics. However, the version in Thomas says, Go outside to the streets and bring back those whom you happen to meet, so that they may dine. So also, in the epoch of the Tree of Life, shall you dine in Dionysian liberation. We're now making a desperate bid to cross the Alps and strike down to the south coast to visit Saintes-Maries-de-la-Mer to pronounce the liberation of Magdalene. The vehicle is precarious, to say the least. We'd made a pilgrimage to Saintes-Maries-de-la-Mer because there's a legend that Mary and Magdalene came ashore in an oarless boat with a little girl called Saint Sarah that some people think was a child of Jesus in them. As we arrived in the centre of Saintes-Maries, we heard the church bells ringing out, and I very quickly parked the van and jumped out and ran desperately down the narrow alleyway toward the church. As I arrived at the church, the bells fell silent. There seemed to be nothing happening at all. So I paid 10 francs and took the spiral staircase up onto the battlements. As I walked around the battlements, there was a small party of French women arrived and opened a door that was inscribed with the two Maries and their oarless boat. We come inside and you can see this is a closed chapel that's right up in the ceiling of the church. This is the chapel to house the relics of the Saintes-Maries. You can see below the church is quite empty. I didn't know what was going on. As I came down the spiral staircase again, the bells once again pealed out. And I suddenly discovered there was a small door on the side of the church. You can see here the heart and the anchor of the Saintes-Maries symbol. And to our complete surprise, one of the 3 annual festivals of the Ascension of the Saintes-Maries was just about to begin, and here it is. We came to Saintes-Maries to pronounce the liberation of Magdalene. To witness the celebration was a karmic confirmation of our quest. When we went down to the beach, our words were simply carried away on the freezing sea breeze.
The boat with no oars is symbolic of being led by the Spirit, being led by visions.
Saintes-Maries is surrounded by a beautiful wetland. It's a national park which contains many unique species of marine birds. We're now going to try to see if we can drive to Rome. Try to get there in 2 days to see what havoc we can cause in Rome. Because we're in striking distance, it seems absolutely essential to have a go at getting to Rome if we can make it.
It was a much higher priority to go to Les Saintes-Maries than to go to Rome,
But now we're here in striking distance, we're going to see what happens. We are working our way through the Riviera's coastal sanctuaries of the rich. They say all roads lead to Rome. The coastal autostrada is engineering's unique metaphor in concrete and bitumen for our journey of incarnation, itself the proverbial descent, one moment in the underworld, the next overlooking civilization from the heavens, and finally reuniting with earthbound reality. The world's great age begins anew, the golden years return, the earth doth like a snake renew, her winter weeds outworn. Heaven smiles and faiths and empires gleam like wrecks of a dissolving dream. Shelley. You'll see it's prophetic when we get to Rome and hear Jane. Here is Pisa. Here again is heaven ascending to the skies. Of course, Copernicus and Galileo showed us flat earth view of heaven inherited from the ancients was incorrect, and we now understand the heavens are full of galaxies as far as the eye can see. Notice here the abounding metaphor of the feminine, but all assimilated into a defined relationship with the patriarchy. The coronation of Mary, seen here and at Strasbourg, performed by Christ, is an implicit concession to patriarchal power as the gatekeeper. Mare is the sea, and Mari is the root of marital union. Mari was originally the goddess on whose account the Egyptians called Cyprus A Mari. Mari in Sumerian means fruitful mother with child. Mariana is the fruitful mother of heaven, hence Miriam, Marian, and Mariamne. Just as at Saintes-Maries, when we arrived at St. Peter's, the bells were ringing out.
Sit nomen Domini benedictum,
et hoc nunc et usque in saeculum.
benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus.
Amen.
No cover! Notice in the next sequence the Godfather that's moving rapidly in to stop my little position speech. Okay, now what I'm saying here is that the Pope is the servant of the Messiah and the servant of the Church, not the master. And you can see behind me the sculpture, which is actually the Pope standing at the bottom. We have a history of hierarchy with the Pope at the top. That's an inversion of the natural order, because Jesus said from the lowest, and that the people that sit at the table, the lowest should become the highest. Well, not should become, but the attitude of humility is the servant. And Luke says, a steward until the time the Lord comes, so here I stand in St. Peter's, the Lord has come. Okay, well Jane and I have made a vigil here to St. Peter's because it's about, well, today is the 8th. It happens to be the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. That was a complete coincidence that we arrived in Rome with no idea of the fact it was the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, nor that the Pope was making an announcement. Walked up to St. Peter's and the Pope. It's like a few days ago going to the Saintes-Maries-de-la-Mer.
Today is the feast of the Immaculate Conception of Mary. The Pope has given a talk about Mary. And I'm here to say that this is all a dream that humanity has dreamed. It represents some beauty. If you look around, there's a lot of beautiful art here. But it's been a dream for 2,000 years that this be the last feast of the Conception of Mary, Immaculate Conception of Mary, in this millennium. It's time to think about, can we change this dream? And why should we change this dream? And I think that we need to awaken from this dream, because it's flawed in the sense that it's as if, having put the warp on the loom, we've woven in the weft without giving it any credit for making the fabric whole. The vision we've dreamed up has women supporting this institution, these structures, this vision, and doesn't address and doesn't show the completion of the complementarity of the whole fabric. And it's time to recognize that the weft is not just helping the warp, it's an integral part of the fabric. So I'm standing here at St. Peter's, having heard the Pope speak and saying it's time to include the feminine, to re-include it, just as Jesus included Magdalene, and to bring women back into the whole fabric The church celebrates Mary, the mother of Jesus, as a virgin. And this keeps the female locked into a very minor role, in a way, that sequesters woman off to the side, that sex is unholy, that God prefers women to be chaste, and this is clearly a mistake. The world would not go on if this were the case. The whole hierarchical structure of the church and of society allows for a kind of scene in which everything must either be on top of or below everything else. And having put women below men, so that, as Milton said, he is for God and she is for God in him, the church has left out this whole part of humanity and made it subsidiary to the main thing.
Sì, ma il tre piedi
Yeah, now
no.
what are you saying? What are you trying to say?
Sì,
There are
sì, ho
many people
capito, questo qui
photographing.
no, non si può tenere il tre piedi.
Why? Cannot take off on the tripod?
No, non può stare per terra questo.
So you have it up here. It's okay.
Ho capito, si lascia riprendere.
Okay. For me, as a person standing in the role of Messiah of biocosmology, trying to renew the Christian heritage, it's an important vigil to make, to come back to St. Peter's and to make a statement, renewing and refreshing the Christian heritage, offering the olive branch. We have in St. Peter's the dove of peace carrying the olive branch. I'm offering the olive branch of biodiversity and the genetic heritage back to humanity in a sharing relationship in which the true Christian heritage of in the destiny of history is fulfilled in establishing the path of the seed, the epoch of the tree of life, which is prophesied to be the culmination of the Christian epoch. Now I'm standing here at St. Peter's as a vigil with Jane, partly to bring back the feminine element into what is a closeted, male-dominated form of partnership in which Mary in particular has taken over the original role that Magdalene had of pronouncing the exaltation as a partner and as a woman who was regarded as a woman of independence and the anointer of Jesus, the person who consecrates Jesus, the person who pronounces the exaltation of renewal. And I'm saying this particularly on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception because we have Mary portrayed as the successor to Eve through the entire epoch. You take the Old Testament epoch of fall, becoming Judaism, becoming the transition to Christianity, and then Jesus comes in to produce the epoch of forgiveness and to redeem humanity from original sin. And later, Mary, who's the mother of Jesus, who plays quite a minor role, she encourages him at Cana for the bread and the wine according to John, but otherwise comes as my mother and brothers trying to intervene in the process of Jesus' mission and not necessarily in a constructive way, is exalted to the heights, and the persona of Magdalene is eclipsed. And this is a feminine persona, and many women come to Catholicism to worship Mary and worship the feminine principle, but it's a sequestered, confined form of the feminine principle where we have the moralistic, celibate woman, the woman who didn't actually get impregnated by a man and nevertheless bears the Son of God, is a very carefully crafted form of the feminine. We also have a hierarchical rule of orthodoxy in which the Pope is the agent of Jesus or the agent of God in the Christian sense. And we know that in Luke all Christians are just guarding the heritage as stewards until the time the Lord should come, until the Maranatha, until the Apocalypse. We're standing now at the millennium, the second millennium, dealing with the explosion of human knowledge and the birth of humanity in the genetic heritage and as a cosmically conscious society. This is the time of the apocalypse.
Cristo viene.
I'm standing here at the end of a history which has many long episodes. Very shortly after the birth of Christianity, we have Peter and the episode of Sapphira and Ananias, and we have a very communistic episode of Christianity, and then we have the casting of the death curse of the Holy Ghost casted as a death wish upon two people who didn't completely share all of their possessions. We now have a very different era of Christianity identified with the utopian mission of capitalism, and a 600-year episode of Inquisition, which began, it goes right back to the flesh and blood of Jesus and the crucifixion. It's succeeded by an episode of martyrdom in which Christians have had a distorted ideal of human love, which is at the expense of shedding blood. And in a minute we'll give a brief communion of the wine and the bread, not as the flesh and blood or my flesh and blood, the soma and the sangre, a new sacrament, which is the sacrament of the tree of life, and not just one but many. We come back to reunify the feminine element with the masculine, to offer an olive branch to the church as a hierarchical order that it could open itself to re-include the Nabi, the prophetess, the free spirit of peer criticism of individual poetic inspiration and visionary inspiration, and also the unification of the free spirit of the Gnostic tradition, which was born by Magdalene in a lot of Gnostic accounts, and was in various accounts trounced by Peter, and Peter stands in the heritage now of the Catholic Church. And as you walk in the doors of the church, you find the keys to the Golden Gate of Heaven are standing on the pavement as you walk in the doors. So the church is manifesting itself as the custodian of heaven. We come back to liberate the feminine, and in the sense of Isaiah 61, to liberate all people in the awakening of our sense of cosmic becoming to the epoch of the tree of life, and to the regeneration not only of the sense of social altruism to care for all humanity, but care for all life and the diversity of all life on this planet. I'm a chaos theorist, and Jesus worked a great deal with controversy to the extent of being thrown out of the temple, eventually killed, and many times threatened with stoning. Now I'd like to try to do this healing in a more gentle way. It's not a time for violence and conflict. So I'm banking on discretion and a sense of kindness to all human traditions, to do this very quietly and come through the millennium as a seed process rather than as an extravaganza. I hope it is an extravaganza, but it's the seed of a new epoch. So we start with the millennium. It's the beginning, not the end. So that's why we're here small and quiet, as if we're just two tourists traveling. But there's a secret hidden within that, which is the seed of something explosive. We are heading north to Milan. This Florentine sketch is a tribute to the diversity of Renaissance, which came from the downfall of the Eastern Holy Empire of Christendom.
by me, stand by me, stand by me. If the sky that we look upon forced to tumble and fall and lose mountains.
We are travelling north to Milan to give a seminar to Jungian therapists on biocosmology and its connection with sentient consciousness. Hosted by Yolanda and Fabrice, himself a protege of Marie-Louise von Franz, and to talk on genetic engineering and biodiversity to an alternative conference. In a fundamental sense, biocosmology is the realization of Jung's alchemy, standing in the modern scientific tradition as the fulfillment of ancient Gnosticism, just as he predicted. What I want to do is relate cosmology as a whole to biology. Here we are with Yolanda and Fabrice and Jane, and we have the sumptuous meal, which is Fabrice just mentioned is a traditional Italian Christmas cake made by the Three Marys.
4 Marys, and it was a token permitting the needy to get free bread, flour.
Synchronicity is precisely the inner manifestation of quantum entanglement. The whole play of Apocalypsia stands squarely in Jung's evolving paradigm of the archetype.
The basis of our modern way of conceiving things. And therefore, it is as if it were right under the threshold of consciousness. This is a wonderful picture of how the development of archetypes, that is, the movement of archetypes looks, when you look upon them as a form of art, maybe from today you look back into the past and you see how the present moment has evolved out of the past.
Notice also that the sacred reunion of dark and light, of feminine and masculine, and of nature and psyche is all manifest tradition. We should thus listen carefully to Jung's words about the final condition as revealed by Marie-Louise von Franz here.
The beauty of all the life, to think that the billions and billions and billions of years of evolution to build up the plants and the animals and the whole beauty of nature, and that man would go out of sheer shadow foolishness and destroy it all. I mean, that all life might go from the planet. If you think of answer to Job, if man would wrestle with God, if man would tell God that he shouldn't do it, if we would reflect more. That's why reflection comes in. Jung never thought that we might do better than just possibly sneak around the corner with not too big a catastrophe. When I saw him last, he had also a vision while I was with him, but there he said, I see enormous stretches, devastated, enormous stretches of the earth. But thank God it's not the whole planet.
We're making a vigil to Amsterdam because it's just about the only place on earth you can partake of the flesh of the gods legally. These galleries also sell exceptional range of seed. You can legally buy cannabis in certain cafes and clubs, which are well known around central Amsterdam. You can see here the greenhouse. It's very civilized. You can buy the most excellent strains of marijuana and hashish. Of course, cannabis is one of the most ancient of sacred sacraments. Ganja is the Ganges herself, even also as we have come from the ancient holy city of Varanasi. The use of cannabis is worldwide, from the old government ganja shop of Varanasi to the dreads of Aotearoa.
Solomon. Solomon is the son of David in the Bible, and Haile Selassie is a direct, unbroken descendant of that.
We know for a fact that, and that's how we use it for that healing, but that's the healing of the nations because it's used worldwide. Hey.
We have come out of Amsterdam to the sanctuary of a Dutch forest to commune with nature and partake of the sacraments. Shamanistic vigils do not reach their full power in nightclub raves, but in the depth and mystery of the wilderness at night.
I think this is cozy.
This is one of the few places in the world where I can sit here quite openly and partake of the flesh of the gods in front of you legally, and I plan to do precisely that. And we're here visiting Amsterdam to celebrate the freedom that comes from an openness of outlook that the Dutch people living in Holland seem to have had towards a number of issues, and it's an attestation to the benign nature of hallucinogens and magic mushrooms in particular, that it's quite possible to go to a store in Amsterdam and legally purchase over the counter fresh psilocybin cubensis mushrooms. In a minute, what I plan to do is simply partake of these mushrooms to declare their sacredness as a Eucharistic biosphere sacrament, and it applies also to ayahuasca and iboga and peyote and marijuana itself, cannabis. All these substances are sacraments that come more deeply than religion out of the evolutionary process itself, and they're here not just to show us what the nature of enlightenment is, but what is our relationship of interdependence in mind, body and spirit with the natural world. So-called flesh of the gods, Tiona Nakatal. There's some debate about the name, whether it really means flesh of the gods or something slightly more discreet, but here we go with the flesh of the gods, the soma. Now, Maria Sabina called it a balada, which is basically a night we stayed up. When Maria Sabina was only about 6, she learnt to eat wild magic mushrooms because her uncle went through a curing using magic mushrooms. And so she knew as a child what mushrooms they were, and she was very hungry. And the mushrooms were growing in the fields where they were shepherding sheep. So she and her sister would get absolutely beside themselves so that they were laughing and crying. Their grandparents couldn't chastise them. They knew essentially the fear and paranoia that it would cause young children to do that. Here I am under the influence of the flesh of the gods, and I want everyone to understand that the evolutionary sacraments are, to humanity in a cosmic sense, the Eucharist. People have an idea of God in the sky, and the idea of meditation is taking us purely into a mind realm. It's like leaving the grosser physical world behind. But evolution has provided divided various sacramental species, partly as a result of natural selection of various types. These sacraments are part of the evolutionary endowment, and like the food plants that we interact with, are part of the way in which we form a fabric with all the species on the planet, and consciousness forms a fabric interactively which sustains all the species in a constructive relationship with humanity. The tendency has been that the meditative tradition and the God tradition of Western religion has been a male-dominated religion of the sky, which takes us away and sees the mind as somehow supreme over the physical realm. The sacraments unite us with the physical realm, and through the physical realm the spiritual realm can become manifest in a complete way. And it's a very beautiful thing to listen to dependence between humanity and fungi and other sacred plants, that it's a manifestation of the totality of consciousness through many species. It's a wonderful thing. It's interactive, and it's not God supreme over Earth. It's us interacting with the cosmos as part of the cosmic design. And it's a beautiful, food-like spiritual thing. And that is the true nature of the Eucharistic sacrament, and that is our evolutionary endowment as to the tree of life. That we should learn to respect as they have always been respected in history, these, and revere them far above the blood of Jesus Christ as our cosmic endowment of human vision.
God told the Delawares to do good even before he sent Christ to the whites who killed him. God made peyote. It is his power. It is the power of Jesus. Jesus came afterwards on this earth, after peyote. The Menemini have a legend also. That's a man coming this way with a buckskin suit. He got long hair. It's Jesus himself. So he told this boy, I said I wasn't going to come before 2,000 years. There's a teepee there, already. So Christ, before he went in it, offered a prayer. Whoever takes this medicine, he will do it in my name. So that's how it represents almost the first beginning. My experiences with sacramental use of peyote are Native American church meetings at Taos Pueblo. My original roadman was Tell Us Good Morning. When I went to see him 12 years later, he was 92 and had a fractured hip and lost an eye, but he was still up all night chanting and shaking his rattle at the peyote meeting held for his son. This is the lunch on the following day. I have also made a pilgrimage to the peyote fields and sacred mountain of the Huichol, Wirikuta. This is peyote in its natural habitat. The Huichol see peyote as the Narika, or portal to cosmic reality, as illustrated here in this Huichol painting. When Brant Secunda became lost in the desert, Don Jose Matsua, the revered peyote shaman, dreamed of him 2 days beforehand and sent warriors to revive him. While in New Mexico, I also spent time with another accomplished shaman, Yeshi Dorji, who does not use sacraments but the ancient meditations of Nyingmapa Lamas. He was an excellent nature shaman for whom there was forked lightning before the dorje or thunderbolt and rainbows over the sacred fire. Iboga is a powerful, long-lasting hallucinogen from the Congo Basin, used to return to the ancestors in the Bwiti and Mburi cults. Jane took Iboga and saw many profuse visions, which later came to pass in reality, from the Alhambra housing development in Davis to Silver and Blue in a poem I later sent her.
And that is the beginning of new life.
I saw this in a vision, so I'm recreating it to make the vision real.
Yeah. And this is part of the Evergain vision. Jane had many visions of the future in Evergain, and we're now sort of completing this vision in prophetic consummation.
Vision was at the very long end of a long night of visions. Suddenly there was this cave which had appeared many, many, many times, which was this well, and suddenly a door in the side of it opened, and a man and my partner were tossed into it, and we just came sliding in like the birds.
Wow.
And that was the end, and then it was all over. The show was over.
I hope it isn't. This is the show's just beginning, folks. We are returning to the Amazon to Yaranacocha Lagoon outside Pucallpa to experience ayahuasca, the vine of the soul. The Shipibo, like most adjacent tribes, take ayahuasca. The women wear skirts, attesting to ayahuasca visions as an integral part of their cultural tradition. You can see this here. Senora Trinico lives in a mestizo slum right at the end of town. He has no fingers or toes because of leprosy. When I met him, he had to crawl to the ayahuasca bottle and open it with his teeth. Yet here, 20 long years later, he sang again to ferry us on the vision quest.
This wine is my blood.
Ayahuasca is used to take the shaman on a voyage deep into the very frontiers of the spirit realm, to find the source of maladies in the real world and seek healing intercession. It also creates a deep spiritual bond spanning the realms of body, spirit and nature. Ayahuasca is also used as a holy sacrament by a number of spiritual movements, including the Union Vegetal, or UDV, who celebrate ayahuasca as a Christian sacrament.
Gloria al Padre, gloria al Hijo, gloria al Espíritu Santo, como era en el principio, ahora y siempre, por los siglos de los siglos. Amén.
A similar potion has been used for centuries as a snuff in cultures spanning the Amazon to Nazca on the desert coast, associated with the shaman's flight to far-flung places. Again, it is used here to draw out infirmities. The San Pedro cactus likewise has a deep and ancient tradition of sacred use to this very day.